I am Sunna, and this is my channel, and today I am going to be talking about a book that I had to read for one of my classes. It was a class where we looked at some of David Cronenberg's adaptations. So we watched The Fly and read the short story, and we watched Dead Ringers, Crash, and then Naked Lunch. And we had to read the book Naked Lunch. So I wanted to talk about it because it is kind of incredible and weird, and I kind of love it. I don't know how to talk about it really. It's not your kind of normal book, and it definitely isn't for everyone because it's very graphic with its content. There aren't really parts of it that aren't graphic. It's all graphic to an extent, with drugs and to some extent sex. There are some pedophilic undertones. It's written by William S. Burroughs, which is one of the beats. And Burroughs himself was an interesting man. He was a heroin addict, and he was gay, and he struggled with both of these things, and that's really what most of his books are about. His heroin addiction, and to a lesser extent, his homosexuality, and that's really what Naked Lunch is about. Naked Lunch is his probably most extreme book. I haven't read any of the other ones, but that's what I've heard. And it is one of the more extreme books that I've read and heard of, honestly. It did go before the Massachusetts Supreme Court because people wanted it banned and censored because it kind of speaks the unspeakable. Naked Lunch won its case. It had a right to exist. It had a right to be spoken, and it kind of put a little bit of an end to books being censored due to ugly things. It has an interesting background. It's basically just told in a lot of vignettes. There isn't really like a concrete story through it. It's just multiple small vignettes that kind of come from one place and have very much the same kind of themes to it, and sometimes you see repeating characters, and it's very hallucinogenic. I kind of feel like I shouldn't like it, but I do. I love this book. It's incredible. I have a hard time putting it down. I think there's about 30 or 20 pages in this, which literally just went, and it was just constant graphic sex, which was weird. You were getting used to the drugs and the descriptions of the drugs and the drug use and the taking of the drugs, and then you get 20 to 30 pages of literally just graphic text, and then you go back to the drugs. But I really like this book. It's kind of incredible. It's so well written. I want to read the blurb on the back because I think it's funny. So it says, nightmarish and fiercely funny, William Burroughs' virtuoso taboo-breaking masterpiece, Naked Lunch, follows Bill Lee through Interzone, a surreal, orgiastic wasteland of drugs, depravity, political plots, paranoia, sadistic medical experiments, and endless gnawing addiction. I love this blur. It kind of says everything you need to say about this book. I don't know how else you're supposed to describe it. The film by Cronenberg, for instance, is not really the book. This is one of those works that is considered to be unadaptable. Cronenberg said about this book that you can start really wherever. You can read it however you want. You don't have to start with the first chapter. You can literally just start in the middle somewhere, and you can literally read it how there isn't really a concrete plot the way that we know it. I can maybe read you some short parts. The Vigilante, for instance, is very short. Just to kind of give you a little taste of this. This is the second vignette in the book. It's called The Vigilante. The Vigilante copped out as a schizo-possession case. I was standing outside myself, trying to stop these hangings with ghost fingers. I am a ghost, wanting what every ghost wants. A body, after the long time moving through odorless alleys of space, where no life is, only the colourless no smell of death. Nobody can breathe and smell it through pink convolutions of gristle laced with crystal snot, time shit and black blood filters of flesh. He stood there in elongated courtroom shadow, his face torn like a broken film by lusts and hungers of larval organs stirring in the tentative ectoplasmic flesh of junk kick. 10 days on ice at time of the first hearing, flesh that fades at the first silent touch of junk. I saw it happen. £10 lost in 10 minutes, standing with a syringe in one hand, holding his pants up with the other. His abdicated flesh burning in a cold yellow halo there in the New York hotel room. Night table litter of candy boxes, cigarette butts cascading out of 3 ashtrays. Mosaic of sleepless nights and sudden food needs of the kicking addict nursing his baby flesh. The vigilante is prosecuted in federal court under a lynch bill and winds up in a federal nut house, specially designed for the containment of ghosts. Precise, prosaic impact of objects. Washstand, door, toilet, bars. There they are. This is it. All lines cut. Nothing beyond. Dead end. And the dead end in every face. The physical changes were slow at first, then jumped forward in black clunks, falling through his slack tissue, washing away the human lines. In his place of total darkness, mouth and eyes are one organ that leaps forward to snap with transparent teeth. But no organ is constant as regards either function or position. Sex organs sprout anywhere. Rectums open, defecate and close. The entire organism changes colour and consistency in split-second adjustments. And all the books like this. It's incredible. Like about film, because David Cronenberg did adapt this unadaptable book. He did adapt it, and he kind of just doesn't really adapt the book itself. It's kind of like the place, Interzone, and the kind of creatures, and a lot of the mood. And then he used a lot of William Burroughs' own life to kind of fill in the story, to kind of make a story, because there isn't really a story in this book. It's just a bunch of small vignettes. For instance, Burroughs shot his own wife in 1951 and killed her. Allegedly they were playing a game of William Tell that went wrong, and that murder, Burroughs has talked about being like the key to his creativity. He didn't really start writing until after he killed his wife. His first book came out 2 years later. This book came out in 1959, and Cronenberg uses that event as kind of a frame for his film version of Naked Lunch, and kind of uses it in that kind of sense where that event is kind of the beginning of everything. It's like an opening to a new place. Cronenberg also put some of himself in there. It's not really Naked Lunch necessarily, and like the film is not even close to being as graphic or as problematic necessarily as the book. There are things in this book that will be very problematic today. It really just is the case. And it's problematic in like all senses. I think Lolita is probably something by Nabokov, is maybe something that like kind of compares to this. The film's fine. Yeah, it's not as good as the book is, but the film's fine. I know I've said this before. I feel like I shouldn't like this book, but I love it. It's also not for everybody. It's weird. It's very much about drugs, and a lot of the descriptions are strangely sensual. I mean, it's very obviously this was written by someone with a lot of understanding and knowledge of drugs and the world of drugs. Just looking at the story of this book, because Burroughs kind of just wrote it on napkins and pieces of paper, and if it wasn't for people like Allen Ginsberg and some of the other beats, this wouldn't actually exist. They kind of put it together and helped him to finish this book. Again, I don't know, when I think about this book, I kind of go Lolita a little bit, because I know what Lolita is about. I haven't read Lolita, but I know it's by Nabokov, and I know Nabokov is a great writer, and it is something that is probably great, like as a piece of literature, even though there is the ethicalness of it all, writing a relationship like that between a 50-year-old and a 12-year-old. I don't remember how old she is in the book, but it's one of those works that always gets mentioned. It's just like, it's a very interesting genre of literature, I think. And I mean, the film, you can watch the film, like that's fine. The film is not close to being as extreme as the book is. Like, not close. The book's extremely extreme. but the film isn't. I mean, the film is Cronenberg, so if you know what Cronenberg does, then you kind of understand what kind of to expect from Naked Lunch. I honestly think this is like top 10 favorite books ever for me. I love this. It's incredible. So I think I'm kind of done talking about Naked Lunch because I really have no idea what I'm supposed to say more. I've said quite a lot. I feel like I've kind of said everything I need to say about it. So I kind of wanted to also kind of let you know what book I'm currently reading. I am currently reading Kazuyo Izukuro's Never Let Me Go. And I am kind of doing the wrong thing when I'm reading this because I like my plan is to try to read, because I'm trying to get back into reading. I used to read a lot when I was a kid, and then like we started having to read quite a lot for school, and I didn't have time to read for myself. So for about the last 10 to maybe 12, 13 years, I haven't really been reading that much. I have the amount of books that I've read in the past 12 years is probably somewhere around the amount that I read in like a year or two when I was a kid. I want to get back to like reading a lot. So I'm trying to do like a chapter a day. And these chapters are fairly short. They're about 10 pages each, which depending on how quickly I am reading is 10 to 20 minutes. And because I'm reading, it's usually after I've meant to actually go to sleep, because I have been really bad at scheduling my time and actually following that schedule. Then I'm kind of reading it too late, because when I finish the chapter I really want to continue because I really like this book. I think it's a very interesting concept. I think it's a very interesting story. And I'm reading it much slower than I normally would because I am reading it too late in the evening and only reading like a chapter at a time because I really need to go to sleep, because it's like a half an hour since I meant to go to sleep and it's too late. So I don't have time to read like a second chapter, even though I would love to. So I'm only at about chapter 11. I'm at chapter 11. I know you can't really see this because it's just too much online. So this is what I'm currently reading. The plan when I finish this is to read Call Me By Your Name and then a book called What If It's Us. And then we will see what comes after that. That depends on a lot of things because we will be moving at the end of May. And hopefully we will have a place that we know we're moving to, because we don't have one currently. So if we don't find a place, we're going to be staying with relatives, and then my books are just going to be in boxes, and I don't know how things are necessarily going to go. Seriously. Both are great. At least so far this is great. I've only heard good stuff about it. I know it's a bit slow, and it doesn't really answer anything, but it's really good. Same with this. This is weird. It's not really slow. There are parts that are slow, but there are also parts that aren't slow. And it doesn't really answer any questions. It just is. These just are. And I kind of like that. Like, let me know if you know of a good book to read. Always up for a good book. Bye!